Hey everybody, welcome back to My Spirit Experience. My name is Heidi Steffens, and today we're going to talk about life tracks. And the reason we're going to talk about this today is I was sent a post today actually from my friend Cindy, and she's like, "Oh, you got to check this out." So I was reading it, and it was talking about multiple universes and dimensions and things that I find very fascinating. And it leads me to a version of that in my own experience that I wanted to talk with you about. And it comes up actually quite a bit, even though I don't talk about it. When someone comes to see me for an intuitive reading or some guidance and they say, "Here's what I'm thinking of," or "I've got these decisions to make and I'm really struggling and I just like a little bit of insight." And I look at where they are on their life path, and what will show up to me in my mind's eye. So from helpful, reliable spirit guides, angels, sources, they'll show me someone's life tracks. And basically it looks like a train yard, where all the train tracks are all next to each other, and all the trains start from this place and then they go and eventually they spread out, right? And they're going all these different places. So that's kind of what it looks like when I'm standing in someone's current life track, is they're on this track and there's all these other tracks lined up on either side. So as things stand today, if nothing really changes, this is the direction they're going to go. And these are the things they're going to run into and the experiences that they're going to have. And then we have all these other tracks. So if someone says, "I'm afraid that this might happen," or "Should I do this?" I can look at those tracks, and what will show up to me is this track over here is what they're talking about. Or this track over here is what they're talking about. Or this track right here is what they're talking about. And when I see the tracks spread out, the further away from the main track that they're on, the least likely it's going to come up, or it's further away because it's not as great of an option. So if they're saying, "Gosh, I'm thinking about getting a different job," and one is here in Minnesota, we're in Minnesota, and one is in whatever other state. So I'm looking at I close my eyes, right, so I can see, and I see this current track, and then maybe Minnesota is right here, and this other state is way over here. Or the other state's right here, and Minnesota's way over here. So I can see that by the track that they're on, the closest to them is going to be the least maybe disruptive. It's going to be the most likely to happen, maybe the easiest to get to. Whatever track is closest is probably a better option if they don't want too much disruption in their life. So I say, "Oh, well, this option seems like it's a better fit. This is going to be keeping everything pretty much the same if you do this." So let's say the Minnesota job is the closest track, and that would keep everything else pretty much the same, and that's what they're looking for. Then I would say, well, it looks like the Minnesota job is something you should really look at. Now, if they really want to mix things up and try something totally different, they could go for this other job, but there's a lot of uncertainty out there. Everything's going to change, and that's probably not a surprise if they're moving to another state and they're uprooting either their family or just themselves, and all their friends are going to stay behind and all that. So it's not a huge surprise. But that's if we have choices, right? So we have these choices. Now, sometimes we have life tracks that are not our choice. So something happens to us, and now our track gets shifted. Now, sometimes someone's decision, maybe it's a small decision or it's not too big a deal, so then that shifts our track. We have to, course correct a little bit because all of a sudden something has changed that we didn't decide, and now we're on this next track. There might be a little hiccup in that, but it won't be too disruptive in our day-to-day life because those tracks are pretty close to what we're already doing, where we're already at in our journey. So we shift tracks, and it's not uncommon to shift tracks somewhat regularly. I mean, at least a few times a year. We have these shifts that we go, oh gosh, I didn't think I was going to be doing this. Or, hey, I just decided I want to do that. And so then it shifts our track. And then, people will come to me and say, well, what if this? And they give me some kind of really wild scenario that it's so far out there, that track is so far out there, it's very, very unlikely that that would be an option. So I'll tell them that, like, gosh, I really don't see that that's going to be, if someone gets let go of their job, boom, now they don't have a job. You just shifted a track. It was not your choice. Now you're on a new track. Everything else is the same other than this job. And long term, you're going to have to figure things out because your track could shift dramatically if you just don't get another job, or you get a job that is somewhere else or incredibly different pay, whatever. But let's say someone says, well, I just lost my job. I was thinking about, what if I can't ever find a job and I lose everything? Wow. Okay, that's a big leap from I just lost my job. And so I'll look and see, what track is that an option? Is that an option? Is it a track? Well, yeah, it's out there. That is a track. That is something that I see, but it is so far away from where you're at right now, it's unlikely that that's what's going to happen. So it's an interesting process to be able to see all these different life tracks. And what I've come to understand through some of my own journey is that I believe that these life tracks are all running at the same time. So I don't know if that's considered planes of existence or different dimensions. I'm not sure how that works because, again, going back to the beginning where I'm not really great at explaining all the science stuff around it, whether this is science or not, I don't even know. But I believe that all of these versions are running simultaneously along with the current track that you're on. So as you switch from one to another, whether you're in this plane and you switch to the next plane or get bumped to the next plane, everything right now is the same. And then where it goes from here is where they start to separate. Those tracks start to pull apart. So it's seamless in this moment to switch tracks, and from there, things get different. But I do believe that these tracks are all running right now. So this version of me and other versions of me that end up somewhere totally different than this version, it's all happening right now. And I'm going to give you an example, and this is kind of a dramatic example, but it's one of the ways that I was able to see that version of me was still running this other track. And it was a really powerful experience. It was a hard experience, but I will never forget it. Because this wasn't my choice of what could have happened. Now it didn't, and I'm grateful for that. So this was about 13 or 14 years ago, and I was doing this big event at a hotel. I had the whole thing reserved. I mean, it was a smaller hotel. There's probably 20 rooms in it, and a grand ballroom kind of area and dining area. And I was doing this big paranormal thing. That whole thing rented. I sold tickets, and it was great. 20 rooms could be rented that night. And so all the rooms were rented. I had one of the rooms, and after the majority of the people left, then the rest of us who were spending the night in this haunted location were kind of hanging out. And so I was getting tired. It had been a long day, and so I had a huge room. It was an awesome room. And so I said, hey, let's just go up and hang out in this room of mine. I've got all this space. We can hang out as everybody's kind of unwinding. And then we'll all go to our rooms and go to bed. And I was by myself. I had this room to myself. I wasn't with anybody, and I was with all my friends, that were in this hotel with me. And this was a moment in my life that everything was switching. I was just getting ready to launch into doing this work full time. And so this was a big deal for me. This was this big launch party, I guess. So we're all hanging out, talking, whatever. I'm starting to get tired. I'm like, all right, everybody out. I got to get to bed. I'm tired. This was great. You guys were awesome. Go investigate the hotel if you want. I got to go to bed because I am exhausted from this whole experience. So everybody leaves the hotel room. And I go into the bathroom and I start getting ready for bed. And I hear a little knock on the door. So I go and open the door, and actually it was Tim, who is now my husband. He's my friend at the time. He comes in and he goes, I can't find my key card. I think I lost it in here somewhere. Can I come find it? And I was like, yeah, go ahead. Have a look around. I'm just taking out my contacts right now, so have a look around. Let me know if you can't find it. We'll figure out, what you need to get into your room. So I hear him go over to this area of the room that the bed was, sticking out, and there's comforter over the corner of the bed with this. It's a horrible, kneecap injury on this bed that's covered up with these comforters, and he clocks the corner of the bed with his knee or his shin or something, and I hear it happen. And everybody had been doing it when they were in there. So I kind of laughed and didn't laugh because I don't want him to be hurt. And so I'm like, hey, are you okay? You hit that thing. And he kind of stumbles forward. And then I hear him yelling at someone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a ghost or something in here. Did he see something in here? I mean, I know this place is haunted, but who is he? He's yelling at someone. So I come out of the bathroom and I go around the corner to see where he's at. And he's got a guy by the collar of his shirt. And I'm like, what? Where did this person come from? There was this little section of the room that had this window that you can climb in out into this turret area that you could, it was a little sitting area. And he was pulling him out of this turret area. And I thought, oh my God, what is that guy doing in here? The room was empty. Everybody cleared out of the room. This person was part of the security team that was left there overnight. And I thought, what in the heck is he doing in my room? How did he get back in my room? Nobody was in my room. And now I'm shaking. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he's pulling him out, and this guy looks terrified. And Tim is irate. He's livid. And he gets the guy to the hallway, and the guy tears out of there. He runs, and Tim's going to go after him. I'm like, Tim, I don't even know what to do. But I didn't want Tim to do anything that he would regret. So I said, just let me figure out what just happened. And in that moment, I could see that the reason he was there was to hurt me. He was waiting for me to go to bed, and he was going to hurt me. And I am so grateful to this day that that stupid key card never was found. We don't know where it went. There's only two places it could have been, the hallway or that turret area where Tim was hanging out. I wasn't even in that area. I was hanging out in the room with everybody else, and there was only a few people in there. So this was an awful thought, is that this person had been hiding in this room. Somehow they got back in and were hiding in the room and waiting for me to go to sleep to do, I'm sure, unspeakable things. I didn't feel like I was going to lose my life that night, so I'm grateful for that, but I can't imagine what I would have experienced. So that alone shook me for a long time. I really had to go through some processing and therapy, and I did a lot of Reiki and trauma processing. And what was interesting is months later, it was probably 6 months later, I was walking past a building that had an all glass front, but kind of like frosted windows. So all you could really see is your reflection. You couldn't see into the building. So my reflection kind of caught my eye, and I turned and I saw myself, except the version of myself that I saw was someone who it wasn't who I was today. The person I was today had been doing a lot of healing and processing and understanding how I got through this, and that I was so lucky that this didn't happen, and all those things. That version of me wasn't lucky. It happened. That was the version of me that lifetime where it did happen, that he wasn't found, and he was in my room at night. And I saw her, and I thought, I didn't know what to think, actually. It was stunning to see the toll that that experience would have taken on me. And I knew at that moment that that version was happening in a different plane of existence, if that's what you want to call it, a plane of existence. That version of me was still happening. And so I got home and I said a prayer for her, and I did healing work for her and sent her that healing work and the understanding to continue doing that healing work so that she could get to a place where she felt whole again, if that was possible. And I talked to my spirit guides about it too, and I said, what is that? And they said, yeah, this is one of those tracks, and it continues to run. It's just we jump tracks based on our decisions or other people's decisions or just accidents or things that happen from this moment, and then everything splits and goes a separate direction. And it was really hard for me to understand that that version of me was still running out there. But I also hoped that this version of me that was still here gave her hope and strength, that she was able to know, like, I hope she saw me. And I never got an answer on that. Like, does she see me? I hoped she did, and I hope she saw that she could be healthy and whole again and have her power back. So anyway, I know that's a really tough, hard story, but it was one that landed with me, and it gave me this true understanding of how these tracks run and that they're all running all the time. So situations that happened to me 10 years ago, if the different version would have happened, that version is still running somewhere. And I don't know that once they get so far apart, if they're ever an option, like, would I ever connect with that version of her again? I don't know. So anyway, and it's not just hard things that help us shift tracks or have us shift tracks. Sometimes it can be really good things, good decisions, positive decisions, good accidents, like happy accidents, right? That help us switch tracks. But I believe that they're all running at the same time. And I don't know if that's something that can be described by science or some kind of scientific term, or if it's something that is going to be proven at some point down the road. It's possible. But I wanted to share that with you based on this post that I saw earlier today. And I just thought it's an interesting thing to think about. And so maybe thinking about your life and certain events that have happened, good, not so good, tough, joyful, that shifted you to a different place to where you are today and where you might have been if that wouldn't have happened or you wouldn't have made that choice. So anyway, I just think it's interesting to think about. And I'd love to hear your comments about this and feedback. So if you have a topic you'd like me to talk about, feel free to go to my website, myspiritexperience.com, and let me know that there's something you want to hear about. If I have an experience around it, I will certainly share. So thank you for taking time to watch this today, and stay safe and be well, and we'll see you next time.